Hey, what's up? It's Michael. Yo, welcome to Comics on Canes. And this man is a regular on a bunch of shows. I mean, he knows everything about the Miami Hurricanes. What would you describe yourself as, Gio?
Uh, just cover everything Miami Hurricanes. Podcaster, writer, any name you want to put on, even photography too.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And also, August 29th, we're going to get together and do a podcast at the Fort Lauderdale Improv. More details coming up about that. We definitely want to get some players to stop by. You know, my dream would be to have Alex Dano stop by. I absolutely love that guy. So I'm going to personally reach out to him. So we'll see. We'll see. I think it'll be a fun time. But Gio, I want to get this going about the ACC. We just saw them all gather for the ACC conference up front, press day. What was your takeaway before we get into specifics? What was your takeaway with the conference and especially Miami, of course?
What do you mean by the conference? Like how it shapes up
Like,
this year?
yeah, how it shapes up. Did you hear anything that kind of stood out from another team talking or anything like that? Or were you just focused on Miami?
Just still kind of appalled by the tremendous confidence coming from Florida State, considering the situation going on there. Even you see Tommy Castellanos having a conversation with Isaiah Horton, a former Miami Hurricane this offseason. And I get it. He's trying to rile up his team, but I think he's also looking for a little bit of a disaster too. Week one, just the comments of saying, oh, they don't have Saban anymore, and that defense is not the same. We'll see what happens week one with that. I think they're in for a rude awakening. I understand he's trying to hype up his team, but I think there's also a way of being confident and not shooting yourself in the foot at the same time.
It's interesting that a coach will let their players talk so freely about another team. So I'm wondering, since it went so terribly wrong last year and they didn't let his players be free and loose and talk crap, I wonder if this is like, hey, I'm gonna just let him. He can't get worse than last year, so why not let him try? I don't know the thinking behind that. Like, how do
Well,
you reason that?
here's the thing with Florida State this offseason, too. They've closed out a lot of like their practice sessions and media sessions, even to their own media. So they've been trying to keep things more in house this year. So I'm
Mhm.
surprised that they haven't tried to like rein in Castellanos at this point. Like, hey, like calm down, like stop making these comments.
Are you thinking they reined it in because it's not looking good, or they just don't want
Uh, a,
reporters
a
jumping
mix.
to a conclusion?
I think a mixture of two things. One, they want to get back to more middle ground rather than being a 2-10 team. And I think that's the second factor there. After going 2-10, um, it's kind of the saying that like when you're a parent, you don't want to reward bad behavior, right? So in that essence, you just went 2-10. What is there to really talk about?
That's true. That's true. Now let's get into some specifics of the ACC presser. What I loved about Mario, and I will say this to Alex Dano if I ever meet him, for some reason, when he's not on that ACC roundup show, it just turns into a Miami bashing session. The last two I've listened to without him, they just start dogging Miami the whole time. And Kitten Gibbs, which I think he's phenomenal at what he does. I love his energy. I love what he does. But he brought up something we kind of always say, but we've never heard Mario kind of fire back at it in the way he did, was Miami always has better talent than the other teams. And I understand that to a certain point, what he was saying. But Miami, what Mario shot back and said, we didn't have great talent. Because if I'm on a tarmac waiting to the seventh round for somebody to get drafted, then Miami did not have good talent. Were you shocked that he was so aggressive about that answer when he had plenty of times to kind of answer the same thing and he never did like that?
I'm not too surprised, and I think Coach Cristobal has a point. I go back to people don't know this, but I'll share this. After the very first season ended, which the last game was against Pittsburgh at home at Hard Rock Stadium, 2022. That first season Cristobal was here. A NFL, longtime NFL executive, and a guy who's back in the NFL right now with the New England Patriots, Alonzo Highsmith said himself, and now I can say this because a lot of these players are gone now, but he said, "Who the heck ranked these kids? Like who is evaluating these kids?" He said, there's barely any talent on this team, like real talent." And I think that was the most damning thing hearing him say that, because you know Alonzo Highsmith has seen a lot of football in his life, from the collegiate level to NFL. He was a tremendous college player. Was the third overall pick with, I believe he got drafted by the Oilers. Spent plenty of time in the league. Has become an executive, scouting operations and everything. Came to the University of Miami for a bit too. He's seen a lot of football in his life, so I think he knows a thing or two about talent and the evaluation aspect of things. So for him to come out and bluntly say that, he told that to me, and I would say one or two other reporters that were there right after the game. Just like recruits were like leaving they had this like little gazebo thing going on with recruits that year, because the F1 races would take place there. So they
Yep.
had some like gazebo terrace thing right outside the stadium. Uh, but I thought that was really damning. Just him saying that, just thinking about it, like putting it together, because people would say, "Oh no, but this guy was 5 star, 4 star, or whatever." There's a lot that goes into it. We see every year there's 3 star guys getting drafted. Cam Ward was a no star guy.
Yep.
There's 5 stars that bust too. So evaluation and also development too. I think some of that played a factor in as well. But Mario Cristobal is right on the point that yes, they did lack talent. They did.
Now, why don't you think? I mean, because we can all look back and play Monday morning quarterback. Is after about the fourth game, we all saw we all saw Guidry wasn't doing well on
Yeah.
defense. Do you know of any time a head coach, just so I know, after like the middle of the season, be like, "No, you're out"? Have you ever seen that happen? Does it happen?
What, that a head coach will
A
fire
defensive coordinator in the middle of a season, like,
Eh, it's happened at other programs. I think what took place there, why they didn't pull that trigger mid-season, is because of what you had in place. You had Cam Ward and all those guys, and yes, your defense is struggling. They're trying to figure it out, but I get it from a coaching aspect that if you shake up things, it might be worse, or
yeah,
what really changes even if you fire the defensive coordinator right then and there in the middle of a season. Now, if you're having a bad season, yeah, fire sale, get rid of everyone. But uh, Miami was 9-0 at one point. Yeah, they lost
that's
to
true.
Georgia. They lost to Georgia Tech along the way, and then the Syracuse lost to end the season. But I, I get it from the aspect of not trying to rock the boat while you're in the middle of a good season.
So, and also, it's hard to fire somebody when you're 6-0. And I
Yeah,
think,
that's the thing.
and then today, I still remember that Guidry line where they almost lost. And he goes something about, but we're still winning. You know what I mean? Like his defense played like crap, and his deferred statement was like, "Yeah, but we won." It's like, yeah, but your defense is horrible. So
Yeah.
um, as far as like Carson Beck, oh, was there before I get to Carson? Is there anything else Mario said that was interesting to you?
Uh, Not really. I'll be honest with you. It was most of what I had expected.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's interesting. Just I know earlier you mentioned the thing about the ACC, like any interesting things I noticed about the ACC conference. I'd say outside of the media day, all the discussion now about North Carolina and the SEC conference realignment talks heating back up again. And like I've said before, I don't see Miami in the ACC long term. I
but
think
who would pick them up though? Which SEC? Florida's not going to let Miami in the
yeah,
SEC.
no, they will never allow that. I would be shocked if that happened, simply because Florida has a large share of that market that they're looking for in the state of Florida. But Big Ten,
Yeah.
academically, the connections there. Donna Shalala. Uh, I know people were not the biggest fans of her when she was the president of UM, but she will play a big factor into that when it comes time, when they get to that bridge, when they go to cross that bridge.
Okay, help me out here. Why is Because I've lost track of her after she left Miami. What? Why is she going to have something to do with that? Where is she now? Just for to catch
Well,
all of us up.
she was with Wisconsin before Miami. She has great relations with a lot of the Big Ten schools that are still within that conference. She also helped Miami align in terms of academic wise with what the Big Ten seeks from its
Yeah.
schools.
Oh, you cut out at the end. You said what the Big Ten seeks, and then it just cut out, or was
Oh
that
yeah,
the end of the?
what the Big Ten seeks from its schools.
Okay, okay. So let's go to Carson Beck because I believe like Akeem Messidor and CC and West, they kind of said what you expected them to say.
Yeah.
I watched several different interviews, Alex Dano, and then he did one with a couple guys from Georgia, I believe. It was a long one. It's like almost 50 minutes long. Um, I've never really heard him talk like that. But what I love about him, the takeaways I got is that this dude swagger. He knows he's good, and he just wants to show everybody that and get on the field. And he's not all about the BS, the hype, the talk. He just wants to get it done. And I really like that. And I saw the report when he told Mario the same thing he said in a presser when he first got there. I backed up a guy that won two national championships. So back going after Cam Ward, it's kind of like who cares? You know what I mean? And I like that about him, that he actually came out and said it on TV. What was your takeaway with Carson Beck?
Well, I hope Miami fans don't take it in a way as Carson disrespecting Cam or anything. It's not anything of that
No,
sort, but it's more so just the confidence that he has in himself. Number two, one of the biggest takeaways that I've noticed just how he feels about this year's team. He's really confident in his guys. He had a lot of glowing reviews to say about them. Also, I also like the fact that all the rumors were dispelled that were running rampant throughout the offseason. I don't know where they started, but some people were saying that oh, Carson hasn't been with the team and he's off by himself and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, where are you getting your info from? I just thought it was really funny, and it just it proved a lot wrong in a way. Obviously, he has more to prove when he gets on the field this year, especially coming off the injury. People talking about, oh, he had a down year and whatnot. Um, I'll be honest though, at the end of the day, I think he handled himself very well
I
at the
thought he
beginning
did
of this.
great.
Even like I liked the suit and chain combo as well. That was a nice touch there too. So
Yep.
I think things will be fine. I don't have any concerns with Beck going into fall camp, and even at that, um, I've shared this over the past 2 weeks. He's been throwing just fine for quite a few weeks now. There hasn't been any more hitches. It was sort of like a ramp up process where they weren't having him throw a ton of deep balls right away. They're just working him up to that point. So far so
Well,
good.
I was shocked. He said at the end of April he let his first one rip. You know, in the presser.
Yeah, yeah. It's he's been throwing for quite some time. So, because people, I know Miami fans have asked this question. They're like, "Oh, well, he's not participating in spring, and how much can he really absorb between then and then when fall camp opens up?" There's player-led functions that go on all the time. As soon as let's see, the spring game ended. It was April 12th, right?
Hmm.
Guys we're getting rolling with stuff within a week to 2 weeks after, just player led functions. That's really what happens mostly between mid-April to, well, this year it'll be July 31st, but mostly it always falls in first week of
And
August when camp opens.
and you can't forget the dude's been playing quarterback for 5 years. I mean, basically, it's not like you got a freshman like Notre Dame will have coming in with basically no experience in college. You know what I mean? It's a different level of thing.
Well, that's the thing I always say when people ask me what's my thoughts on that first game. um, I find it hard to picture a redshirt freshman who's going to start his very first collegiate game being the reason why Notre Dame wins that game. If Notre Dame beats Miami week one, I think it falls on the defense, that the defense didn't do their job, that they weren't able to contain the run enough. Obviously, you're not going to be able to shut down Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
That's a tall task in itself. But can you, if you are able to contain it to a certain level, uh, if Miami's defensive back shopping that they did throughout the offseason, will it show up on game one? Because that may be the best receivers group they may face all of the regular season as
Yeah.
well. So I think a lot of things will be answered about this team within the first game.
Let me ask you this. I listen to all the podcasts too. A lot of people thinking this is a must-win game, Notre Dame. I don't see it as that. I see it as, you got people saying, well, they're going to dog Mario if he loses the game, blah, blah. I don't really care about that, but I also don't think it's a must win. It'd be nice to win, but I think what the win does is it shows Mario's growth as bringing the program forward and you beating a team that was in the national championship that has all this hype this year. But the season does not hinge on the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you on that point actually, and I'll tell you why. Number one, you want to win the ACC this year. You were literally right there last year. It was right within your hands, and it fell out. Um, you want that to be your number one goal this year because you get into the ACC, you find your way into the playoff. Bottom line,
Hmm.
that's how the cookie crumbles there. And the other thing I'll say is I agree with you on the aspect about Notre Dame being more a perception thing of
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal in the program. I think perception wise, like nationally, it helps a lot because, like you said, Notre Dame national championship runner up. They still have a very good to decent team coming into this season too. They have quite a few guys returning, so I think it sets kind of a barometer for where is this Miami Hurricane football program at in year four of Mario Cristobal?
And I also think it's a big deal to recruits. First game, Notre Dame, they're going to have some big recruits there. You win that game, you win the Florida game. Of course, you want to win the ACC too, but if you win those two games, that makes a big statement with recruits. And that's when people start thinking, oh, okay, maybe I'm committed to this school, but I really do want to go to Miami because now I actually see them stepping up. And I think it could help in that too.
I agree. Like I've always said, perception plays a very big factor. Some of these kids they haven't seen uh, a great Miami team in a long time. Like obviously last year was really good and whatnot, but
Yeah.
like I've brought up before, on average, Miami's been what a 7 or 8 win team for the last 20 years. So when was the last time they even won 10 or more games in back-to-back seasons? You have to go back to the early 2000s. 2002,
Yeah.
2003 was the last time they did that. I think that would be huge for the program if you could get into the ACC championship game this year. Obviously, winning it even better. That should be 100% the goal.
Now, let me ask you this, and I kind of disagree with people because, NIL is such a big thing now. Do you think recruiting would be any different this year? Because there was this misconception that if Miami wins 10 games this year, they were going to be top five in recruiting, maybe number one at one time we were talking about. But to me, teams that win a lot still lose players out of their cities, out of their states, right? Georgia lost the two biggest five stars out of Georgia. They went to Texas and one went to Alabama, and they're
Yeah,
Georgia.
Justice Terry went. Yeah, Justice
Yeah.
Terry went to Texas.
So my thing is, and this is all hypothetical. Let's say Miami wins the ACC last year, goes to the playoffs and lose the first round or the second round, whatever they did, because they didn't have a defense. Do you think recruiting would be really any different now?
Uh, I think it would have helped to an extent if you were in the playoffs because I know some of these kids look at it as like, oh, Miami gets us all up and excited just to let us down. I know that's a
Yeah.
perception that goes on. Uh, I think for some other kids, there's that allure to the SEC, which plays a factor. Which I've been on the point that if Miami, I don't think if I think it does happen within the next few years, that Miami being in the Big Ten, I think that will give them a little bit of a bump in itself in terms of
Mm-hmm.
recruiting. Uh, I will say though, perception is the biggest thing, and there's still that thing lingering in the air that, oh, Miami can't win the ACC, they haven't gone to the
Yeah.
playoff yet. I think when you build multiple successful seasons and when you start sending guys into the draft, which Mario has started to do,
Yep.
it absolutely has to continue. I think that's when things will change a little bit more. Like, for example, the Derek Cooper situation, it's an awful situation overall because the feeling was very positive with that recruitment for months. We're talking about 6, 7 months, only for Texas to swoop in within the last month and a half with no official visit and land his commitment. That's brutal. That's very brutal, but it's reality at the same time right now. I think you can combat some of that with having more success on the field, being more consistent, because Miami has a 10-win season, a 9 or 10 win season, basically once every 5 to 6 years.
No.
Kids see programs like Alabama, Georgia, even Texas now, because people say like, oh, but Texas, they were dormant for a little bit. Yes, but not as long as Miami has been. Like Texas still has had really great moments, and even when they've been down, it hasn't been for too long. So the other aspect that I'll mention on top of all of this, when it comes to winning on the field and all that great stuff, just consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency is the bottom line. It's the bottom line.
Okay. So I want to run through because we got 30 minutes here. We're at 22. What battle are you most interested to see in camp? Is it the defensive backs? Is it the linebackers? What is it for you?
For me, it's middle linebacker and who will be the other safety. The reason why I say middle linebacker, I know a lot of people default to Muhammad Toure playing middle linebacker, but I don't think that happens mostly because he didn't play much middle linebacker even at his previous school. He was more of a will linebacker, stand up edge rusher, played some Sam as well, played a little bit of Mike here and there. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out at middle linebacker. Uh, Again, you got some names in there like Popo. I know some people still like Chase Smith, like from an athletic standpoint, but just all the injuries he's battled. Uh, there's been some discussion as well if Kamal Bonner may be more of a Mike
Hmm.
linebacker rather than a Will because of how he plays downhill. And again, Wesley Besaint. I know Miami likes to employ two linebackers on the field. Wesley Besaint has projected more as a Will, but he has put on more size. Could we see a potential move to the Mike? I don't know. We'll see in camp. I know they're going to test and experiment. And the reason why I say safety is I like the addition that they brought in with Jacoby Thomas, but I have some concerns there from a coverage standpoint. I know he's really good in the box, can lay the hammer on opposing guys on offense, but again, my concern in terms of coverage there. I have had this belief for a while now that Xavier Lucas would be the most talented safety on the entire roster if he were to play there tomorrow. But he also may be your best corner too. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a balance that comes into play. I think one of the keys to that secondary is if you can get a guy like a Damari Brown or Ethan O'Connor to step up as a legitimate starter this fall camp, do you entertain the idea of Xavier Lucas potentially playing safety in some situations? It doesn't have to be full time, but I know there's programs that do this with some of their best defensive backs that they play them all over the field. They
Yeah.
don't just keep them at one spot.
Yeah. What do you feel that the biggest, besides the offensive line, what's the biggest strength right now? And I don't want to say we know running backs and offensive line. If you had to go to that third strength, what would it be for you, if there is one?
I would say tight end. I
Oh yeah,
continue to hear many good things about Alex Bowman. Elijah Lofton is primed for a big year as long as he
yeah.
stays healthy. Even Brock Schott was starting to come on at the end of spring and hearing a lot of good things about him coming out of summer workouts and heading into fall camp. So they have a bunch of different body types in that room, skill sets, guys who can block, guys who could play vertically, guys that could line up out wide, can line up in the slot, can line up in line, or even in the backfield too, like an Elijah Lofton. He's that full on Swiss Army knife. So they have a lot of talent in that room. We'll put it that way.
What what did it shock you that Ruben Bain didn't go to the presser?
I believe he was there last year,
Oh,
actually.
was he?
I,
So
I
they were
would have
just
I would
rotating
have to
people?
go I would have to go back and check. I know that's more of a thing that the coaches decide who to take, so
Uh, let's talk about Notre Dame. I know it's far off. Mario and the whole team, they don't talk about it. And I get that. You don't want to put bulletin material out there.
yeah.
But you heard the presser. You know what Notre Dame does. How you feeling about that first game right now? And it could change leading up after we see the team. How are you feeling right now about the game?
I think it's the biggest barometer test for where this program is 4 years in. Like I mentioned earlier on this show, that I don't see a redshirt freshman quarterback starting his very first game being the reason why Notre Dame wins that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it boils down to, can your defense contain Jeremiah Love enough? You're not going to be able to stop him, but can you contain it to a certain extent? Can Miami's defensive backs match up with the wide receivers that Notre Dame has? They have Jaden Greathouse. They brought in Malachi Fields. They have some talent. They even have a tight end too. I forget his name right now, but he's pretty talented himself. And that defense of Notre Dame is nothing to shy away about either. They have a really good secondary. I know people have brought up, oh, but they lost some starters in their defense. What people forget is Notre Dame, during that run they had last year, some of those guys that were playing weren't the original starters. They had some second stringers playing because they had some guys banged up, especially on their defensive line. And those guys are returning. Those guys that took those snaps while the starters were out. So there will be a challenge there. Uh, I think it's a challenge for Miami's wide receivers too. I think you'll learn a lot about this receiver room in game
Mm-hmm.
one. I
Yes.
think Josiah Trader, CJ Daniels, those guys will be tested in this matchup. Malachi Tony, speaking about position battles you mentioned earlier, how does slot play out? Because if you ask me personally, I understand why you went out and took an insurance policy at the slot position. Aside from the competition you already had with Ray Joseph and Malachi Tony, but you bring in Tony Johnson too. Um, I don't want them to impede his growth. If he's ready to play right now, you play him.
Yeah.
You play him if he is. But I understand why they did that, taking out the insurance policy, because some guys sometimes hit that freshman wall. I remember this time last year, we were all talking about JoJo Trader stepping up
Yeah.
and being a guy last year. And unfortunately, he had a shoulder issue last year. So that didn't materialize. So sometimes some expectations we have going into a season, they may change as things get closer. So, but yeah, I feel good about it. I think Miami is very capable of winning
Yeah.
that game. I don't think this is like an unattainable goal for them or whatnot. And I think Carson Beck will play a very big part in it too.
Let me
Um, Go ahead.
let me ask you this. Do you think they're in a better position this year than 2017 to beat Notre Dame?
Um,
Like, on paper wise.
on paper, I would. Oh, that's really tough. Um, that defense was really stout, that 2017 team, and a lot
It
of that had to
was.
do a lot of that had to do with the amount of guys that they had on the defensive line. Like, you had Jonathan Garvin and Joe Jackson, Trent Toolbox Harris, Kendrick Norton, R.J. McIntosh, all those guys, Gerald Willis. You had tremendous talent within those
And you
defensive
also
linemen.
had Manny Diaz calling it a super aggressive defense, too.
Yeah, well, I think how deep that defensive line was, that it suited his style perfectly, because it was just a relentless attack. You had viable options in terms of getting upfield and being able to rush the quarterback. So I think it was just the perfect storm there for them. Um, I think I personally think the offense is better on paper going into this
Yeah.
matchup compared to 2017. Defense, still question marks. We'll have to see. I love Miami's defensive line going into this year. some concerns on defensive tackle depth, but like the top guys in those groups, that defensive end, defensive tackle, they could do some damage as long as they stay healthy.
Do you think it was by design? Because I thought about this two different ways. Mario didn't mention specific receivers, neither did Carson Beck. Do you think that was by design, or did Carson Beck just forget the names of the receivers? That's why I was like, I wonder if he just doesn't want to spew out a couple of names, because if he misses one, it would be a big story. He doesn't even know his receivers, so he just played it safe.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's so much that he forgot the names. I noticed this. Um, I know they try to teach this within team culture. There's two things I've noticed. When players post a practice highlight or like a photo of a highlight from practice, sometimes they'll even block out the opposing
Yeah,
jersey number or the name and whatnot. I noticed that. The other thing I've noticed, if in media, if you've ever tried to ask, for the most part, I've noticed is some guys slip up and they'll say guys that are standing out. For the most part, I've noticed they kind of try to push that culture where everyone is putting the work in, that everyone is doing well, and that's not always true. That there may be some
yeah.
guys lagging behind or whatnot, but I get it from a team culture aspect. They don't want anyone to kind of feel singled out, like, oh, Carson didn't say that I was doing well, but I caught a touchdown the other
That's
day.
true. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is Wesley was very excited about Torre Muhammad, and I was like, that's culture right there, where this dude could take your job, and you're like, that dude's gonna be a beast. So that just shows you right there. There's some type of culture in that building.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm actually excited for what they do with Teray. I expect them to use him in multiple ways on that defense this year, whether it's rushing the passer, even standing up as an edge rusher at sometimes. I think you're going to see some wrinkles like that.
All right. So Gio, I know you're running around. You're in your car right now. Thank you for doing this. Hit up your socials. Tell everybody where to find you.
Yeah, everyone can find me on X at GeoMillion or also on YouTube at Who Want Smoke underscore Inc. I have a weekly show with Amon Richards. We didn't go live last week. I had a couple of things going on and whatnot, but I'm back home now. So there will be a show very soon. Looking at something like this weekend, actually.
All right. August 29th. Fort Lauderdale Improv. We're putting together a show. Me and Gio will give you all the details next week on that. And then I do two stand-up comedy shows after that, but I'll be in 2 days before the Miami event. So if you got any parties, Gio, any luncheons, I'm down. Let me know.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Gio. And for everybody else, make sure you like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. Later. Go
Later.
Gates.
Go Canes.